Welcome back. I'm Nick Critelli, Chair of the Iowa State Bar Association's Ethics Committee. Now, by now, you've had an opportunity to review the Ethics Committee live webinar segments dealing with of-counsel relationships and pro hoc vici engagements. This segment of the live webinar discusses Ethics Opinion 1303 dealing with contracted lawyers. Now, this concept is new to Iowa, but not other states. A contracted lawyer is a fancy name for a law temp. You find yourself overwhelmed with work, say during a busy tax season, or another example, a case with boxes and boxes of discovery and you need legal help. To fill the need, you bring on a lawyer temporarily. You may get them from directly or from a law temp agency. This presentation explores how to do it.
Help wanted, contracted lawyers. What is this all about? Contract, law temps, blah, blah. Well, we now have that, okay? And most states do. We now join, I think, almost all states and have an opinion with respect to it. Here's how this works. You have a temporary need for legal services, okay? The crush of business during the tax time is just, come over you, and you can't get all the work done, or you have a large case come in that's got a ton of discovery and you don't know how to deal with it. Well, you got a couple of options. You could obviously co-counsel with somebody that has the ability to do that, or you could say, look, I need to get somebody in this office just to deal with it. It's a lower level work. I don't need a specialist involved or whatever it is. Where can I find this help? How can I do it? And what's the rules pertaining to it? So that's a little bit how this works, okay? Well, you could go to a temporary staffing agency, and yes, they have those. We don't have any of them in Iowa yet. Chicago has them. I'm trying to convince Dwight Dinkla that the Bar Association ought to add this to their lawyer referral, all right, so that you simply, I got a good look out of his face, thinking maybe, he's thinking, folks, so that, we can provide this service. Instead of being a layperson call up and say, I have a tax lawyer, how about I call lawyer referral and say, look, I need some help out here, because we got a ton of new lawyers that need work, and maybe a ton of retired lawyers that need work. So that's one thing the bar could do. So you could go to a staffing agency, or you could contact these people direct. And we've all done this before, particularly newer lawyers starting out have, we used to use the term ghosted. We guess we can't use that anymore. In Ireland, they call it deviled. We're deviling for the lawyer, but it's basically law temp work. So that's how the relationship sets out. Well, let's drill down in and find out what we can do. Obviously, you've got the duty of confidentiality. That person, that law temp that's in there working with you has to keep that information confidential. Consent. Here's where we deviated from the ABA. This is out of the opinion. Consequently, we declined to adopt the ABA position. Iowa lawyers who anticipate engaging the services of a contracted lawyer should do so with the consent of their client. Here's why. We believe that people ought to know who's working on their work and who has access to their confidential information, particularly in a law temp situation, because that law temp is, as you will soon learn, is going to carry that conflict with it into other firms. So we think that the client ought to know about that. Client's going to get the bill one way or the other, okay? They're either going to get it directly billed to them, in which case they certainly have a right to know because they're being billed out as an expense, or it's going to be amalgamated into the lawyer's bill with a surcharge. So we think that the client ought to be aware of that. So that's one of the things where we deviated from the ABA. Get rid of my marker here. Okay. Compensation. We did adopt the ABA's rationale with respect to a surcharge. Now you say, what's a surcharge? Well, that's where the contracted lawyer is charging you maybe $50 an hour, and you charge that rate out at $100 an hour. You say, well, wait a minute, I can make a profit center off of my law temp. No, not really, because you've got the duty to supervise that person, and to supervise their work, and you're adopting that work as your own and you're standing by it. You got the liability. So there ought to be some compensation that goes along with that risk, just like there is with respect to an associate. You pay your associates X number of dollars an hour, but when you bill their work out, it's higher because you have that responsibility and you've taken on that liability. So we adopted the ABA's position on surcharging. The key here, folks, is whether you bill it directly as an expense or you bill it as part of your fees. So that's the only really significant difference with respect to that. All right, moving on. Go. Supervision. As we said before, you have the responsibility to adequately supervise and control the services rendered by that contracted lawyer. So, bottom line is, make sure that you know who you're getting, their qualifications, their education, their training, etc. But you do have a supervisory obligation there. All right, conflicts. This is why we use the term conflicts cooties, because once you have a conflict, you have a conflict. Say this law temp here works for you. They are now in contact with all of your client's information. They carry that information and that conflict with them. They go to Dwight's office, and now they import all of that conflict with them. So what we did is we put the burden, we followed the majority rule on this, we put the burden on the contracted lawyer to recognize direct conflicts and to avoid placement in law firms that represent clients adverse to the contracted lawyer's former or current clients. So when you take that, we get that law temp in, you want to sit down and say, okay, do you have conflicts with our clients, and sort that out. You lawyers who want to do temporary work, keep a log, keep a conflict log so that you can be able to answer those questions, because you've got ethical responsibility here. All right, so it kind of works both ways.
It was our hope that this opinion would be beneficial to both lawyers who need help and to those lawyers who are looking for temporary work. The next segment deals with Opinion 1304, the mentorship relationship. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to contact me at nick@critellilaw.com, nick@critellilaw.com. Until then, have a good day.